Hi, my name is Maria, and this is my story. When I was younger, I went through a lot of things, from being molested to my mom kind of just being all over the place, moving around, and my grandmother having custody until I was about 7. My mom came and got me one year, and we moved to the middle of nowhere. It was a new life. She'd met my husband, or not my husband, her husband, and he came with a son. So all of a sudden, I had a dad and I had a brother. A couple of years passed, and they had a child together. And I think the most traumatic thing that ever happened to me was February 17th, 2004. I woke up at 12:25 in the morning to my mom screaming. When I looked down the hallway, I saw my dad running down the hallway, and he had gone into the bathroom to get the fire extinguisher, but he didn't realize that it was empty. And then that's when I realized that our house was on fire. And he saw me, and at that moment, I don't know what was going through his head, but he came in and he opened my window. I'm from New England, so at that time it was -20, below zero, and there was snow on the ground. It had rained the night before, so there was snow underneath ice. And so when I was running through the snow barefoot, I was running through ice to my grandparents' house. And this was my dad's family. I ran into their house screaming, "Our house is on fire, our house is on fire." And they got up and they ran, but we lived in a trailer, so it just went up like a matchbox. My mom, I could hear her. I could hear her in the snow just screaming my name over and over again, my dad's name, my brother's names. But the firefighters wouldn't let me leave the house. I was 11. It was just really traumatic, really hard. I was standing in my grandparents' in their living room, right by their windows, and I was just watching fire coming out of the window that I had just jumped out of. The next thing I know, my mom was being air flighted to Mass General because she had 75% of her body was burnt with third-degree burns. They medically put her in a coma for about a month, and the hospital, the burn unit, held my 12th birthday so that my mom could be there even though she was in a coma. When I went back to my middle school, I don't know what it was, but middle school girls being middle school girls, but I was bullied. Just one person got it in their head, and I was forever known as the girl who set her house on fire. Even though I had nothing to do with it, it was we had a wood stove and it caught our couch on fire in the middle of the night. The chief I had talked to said that they had found my dad and my brothers by the back door. They were this close to escaping. But there was so much ice on the back door that they couldn't open it. They would have been 23 and 25. I feel like if I wouldn't have gone through what I went through, I would have never been the mom that I am today. The crazy part is not only did I lose my dad and my brothers that night, but I had lost the family that I had just gained. My dad's family wanted nothing to do with me. They told my cousins that they weren't allowed to talk to me. A lot of healing that I had to overcome, and that my mom really didn't get to overcome. So my grandmother took guardianship over me and my mom. And when I was 14, my mom decided to move back to the spot where the fire had happened. And I begged her not to move there because I couldn't do it. I didn't want to. But for her, I guess it was the way that she needed to grieve. And I had already grieved. My grandmother threw me in every counselor, every group session that I could think of for 2 years so that I could grieve, so that I could be mad and yell and hate the world. But my mom needed to grieve and heal a different way, and it was just really hard for me. So throughout my whole high school, I had to be reminded of the one night that the world took everything from me. I just wanted to see that area in my rear view more than anybody in the world. So I signed up to go to the Army, and I found out that I was pregnant. My recruiter had called me and said that I was pregnant with my first child. The dad and I tried to make it work, but he was amazing to me throughout the whole time I was pregnant. But after she was born, it was awful. I was emotionally abused. I was physically abused. He made me believe that if I left him, I would have nothing. I don't think people realize how much emotional damage somebody can do to you and what they can make you believe. I've never been with somebody more manipulative. I cut my friend out. I cut my family out. He was the only thing that I had besides our daughter. And it was just day after day, praying and praying and praying, of just hoping that, tomorrow's going to be better. Tomorrow I'll be able to call my mom. Tomorrow I'll be able to leave. I left him like 5 times. And every time I'd go back, because he loved me and I loved him, and I wanted her to have a dad. I wanted her to have what I didn't, because it was taken from me. And I thought that was the only way, was being with him and giving her the life that I wanted, that I never had. I don't know, one day he made me cry so bad. He accused me of doing drugs because I was like 90 pounds soaking wet. And I was crying and crying. And my 2-year-old daughter came up to me and held my face with her little hands and asked if I was okay. I don't know, but in that moment, something clicked. And I knew I needed to leave. So I called my gram and I told her that I was on the way. And I got in my van and I packed everything I could fit into it. And I left. I moved into a domestic violence shelter for women. After I stayed with my gram for a couple of nights, but I needed to get a protective order against him. And so I went to court and he didn't show. Go figure. Even though I had that piece of paper, it didn't matter. He still called. He called even when the police were in our apartment one time. But they couldn't prove it was him. They couldn't prove it was the person who screwed my life up for so long. And so I just had to keep changing my phone number and keep trying to figure out how to pick myself back up again. The domestic violence shelter really, really helped me. I lived with many other women that had gone through what I had went through. And I hope that one day he finds peace. I hope that he's happy somewhere, because I am. And I hope he knows how happy I am. And I hope he realizes everything that I went through and everything that he put me through. I just hope he sits with it every day. Because guess what? I forgive you. I forgive you for being probably the worst person I ever met. Because I have an amazing daughter because of you. And I wouldn't trade her for the world. It's crazy because of everything that I went through and all the hardships and losing my family. I probably wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for my gram. My grandmother picked me up so many times. She just helped me dust off all the broken pieces and showed me my worth. I feel like I've come a long way as a person. I feel like I've come a long way with my mom. my mom and I didn't really have a good relationship, and I don't know if that has anything to do with the fire and her healing and her grieving and my healing and my grieving, but at one point we lost connection, and years have passed, and we finally have rekindled everything, and there's a light in her that I've never seen before. But I'm married now, and I have 3 beautiful children. I live in an amazing house and in a really great town, and I wouldn't have that. I feel like my life would be so different if I didn't go through what I went through. I'm strong. I'm strong, and I try to tell myself that every day, because I don't think people realize that when you go through it. When you lose so much in one night, in 1 week, in 3 years. I hope one day that my daughter understands what I had to do. I hope that she doesn't hate me for having to leave. And I hope that one day she has a relationship with him, because I feel like every girl needs to at least close that chapter or open it and figure out where they need to be or belong in that sense, I guess. I'm beautiful. I'm beautiful, and this is me.